That's a fact. Georgia State has a better quarterback than Florida State. Boy, they're having nightmares about that game-winning field goal. Near, far, wherever you are, we suck balls and we know it. We're Seminoles. What is going on, everyone, and welcome to WreckTalk. And this video came as a suggestion from Joe Smalls, member of the channel, and I thought we'd do this every week. So we're going to do a power ranking for all the ACC teams. Like, I don't watch as much football outside of the ACC as other people do, so I want to stay within more of what I know. So not only are we going to rank them, we'll put them in a tier. So top tier would be a Final Four team, basically a team that is a national championship contender. Next tier, ACC championship contender, then just a good, decent Power Four team. Bottom of the ACC and the doo-doo tier. Oh, and there's going to be some doo-doo tier teams on here. Let's get started. Let's just go through these in no particular order, and then at the end, we'll have our power ranking. Virginia. I know that they beat, what was it? It wasn't Charlotte. Gardner-Webb or something. They had a decent showing against them. The thing is, Virginia's been in the dumpster for a while now. They hired Tony Elliott, a guy that had a lot of success at Clemson, and just has not been able to get anything going. He did have a good win against North Carolina last year when North Carolina had Drake May, but it's nothing special to beat Northern or UNC. Beating UNC is kind of like pass and go and collecting your $200 or whatever. Like it happens to everybody, even accidentally sometimes. Even when you're not meaning to. So I don't have anything against Virginia. I actually like Virginia, but this is probably Tony Elliott's last year, isn't it? Let's just be honest. Boston College. Now are they the only team that hasn't played yet? I think they make a good hire in Bill O'Brien. Boston College is one of these teams I've always had respect for from a distance. They're always well coached. They usually have a pretty beefy offensive line. They don't beat themselves. Really like their quarterback. And they play Florida State this week. 17-point line. We'll see how Florida State responds to getting beat by just a flat-out better team. But as of right now, I haven't seen any football from them. I've got to put them bottom of the ACC. Bottom of the ACC tier. Cal. Now, Cal, similarly, I guess because they have played, we'll put them above Boston College. They win, like 34-13 or something. Let's go Cal Bears 2024 schedule. I know they won. Weird talking about Cal and the ACC. I'll have to get used to that. Yeah, 31-13, they beat UC Davis. I imagine that's a line that they covered. Don't know a lot about them this year. I'm just going to have to see more football from Cal before I move them out of the bottom of the ACC. So not a lot to say about Cal. Clemson. You would think they go an ACC championship contender. They didn't play like it yesterday. Now, I know that the team they played had a number 1 next to their name. They played Georgia. Clemson has a fantastic defense. The thing is, their offense is not going to do their defense any favors this year. They're going to go 3 and out. They're going to turn the ball over, and their defense is going to be on the field way more than they need to be. Since Trevor Lawrence left Clemson, they've been on a decline. Now, I'll give props to Dabo for recruiting they probably had the best quarterback in the country for 7 or 8 years, however long those guys were there, 6 to 8 years. Since then, his refusal to use the portal has put his team behind the 8 ball. They've been on a decline ever since he did that. Now he's doing something that only service academies do, and it's got to hurt his recruiting. Because if you're recruiting against Clemson, all you got to say is like, look, if they're a player or two away from being where they need to be and they can go in the portal and get them, you're going to be short there. You're going to be a worse team because of the decisions that your coaches have made. Now, I know people like Pigskin Pete have said they're never firing Dabo, and they're certainly not there yet. But if they lose like 5 games this year, 6 games, if they keep declining, eventually that good old Christian boy stuff is going to run thin with Dabo, and they will be calling for him. I think right now you got to put them as a good Power 4 team, though. Now, you can move out of here, Clemson. I just got to see some better play against some other teams, and I'm sure they will. I mean, realistically, obviously, they're an ACC championship contender. They've just got major questions on their offense. Duke, I think we got to put them back here. Maybe we'll put them above Boston College, just because Boston College hasn't played. Duke didn't look great. Who'd they play? Elon. They've got a new head coach in Manny Diaz. Their team was completely gutted last year. But I'll give a shout out to the Dukies. I mean, I can see that there's a football team there that can win some games. I do think Duke will sneak up on a team or two this year and win some games they really shouldn't win. Their quarterback, I think he transferred from Tennessee. Like, he's got talent. There's talent on this team. They're just in a rebuild. In fact, I think you got to put them behind Boston College. We're going to skip over Florida State till the end. Georgia Tech. I'm going to put them behind Clemson for now. And that's probably going to make Tech fans mad. That's what my whole channel is about. Tech does have a way, way better defense this year. Kyle Eford, linebacker for Georgia Tech, is leading the country in tackles. We've got to be a top 10 rushing attack. We have a top 10 offensive line in the country. Obviously, Georgia Tech's offense is better than Clemson's offense. Clemson fans might disagree with that. Let me just ask you this. Whose offensive line would you rather have? Whose quarterback would you rather have? Now, Maffa, they probably got us at running back. Maffa's a really good running back, but I've just got to see more football from Georgia Tech before I'm willing to put them in an ACC championship contender or above Clemson. Louisville. I'd have to look at Louisville's schedule. Louisville 2024 schedule. They had a big, big win yesterday. I mean, they beat the brakes off of a team that no one's ever cared about, the Austin P. Governors. Hey, the governor. 62-0. So you can't tell a lot from that. I mean, all that Louisville can do is beat the brakes off of a bad team, which is what they did. But then you got to ask, like, if they played Clemson today, who would be favored on a neutral site? Probably Clemson. So I think you got to put them here. As a matter of fact, because if I do it the way I want to, I'm going to end up with only one team contending for the ACC, which wouldn't make sense. We'll rearrange this a little bit later. NC State. NC State goes in the doo-doo tier, slightly above Virginia. NC State is a team that's a dark horse for the conference to be a conference championship every year. They win 8 or 9, 10 games a year, but they never can get over the hump. They always stumble in like 2 games a year that they shouldn't lose, and they looked awful against Western Carolina. Western Carolina was close to winning that game. Quarterback for NC State, was it McCall? Looked awful, couldn't complete a pass, looked like Ray Charles passing out there. They might look way better. Like, a lot of teams struggle in week 1. This is certainly an overreaction, by the way. All of these rankings are an overreaction to how they looked in week 1. One week's all we have to go off, though. And NC State looked absolutely awful. They're a doo-doo team right now. Pitt. Pitt looked good. Pitt played, what did they win, 35-13? No, that was another school. 55-24 over Kent State. Quarterback looked good. Threw for 340 yards, 3 touchdowns or something like that. Pitt looking like a better team this year. Now they go on the road to Cincinnati next week. So I don't know what the expectation for Cincy is. They've got Louisville's old coach, Satterfield, but Look, through 1 week, Pitt looks okay. SMU goes in the doo-doo tier, slightly above NC State. There were two kind of darling teams this year, and a lot of it had to do with their schedule, and a lot of it had to do with just kind of silliness, honestly. SMU and Virginia Tech were the darlings of the conference. SMU was power ranked ahead of Georgia Tech in a lot of preseason power rankings. They've never played an ACC game. SMU looked horrible. SMU should have got beat by Nevada. Full stop. SMU should have 100% got beat by Nevada. I'm not impressed. Their quarterback's supposed to be all world. He looked like he should be playing for NC State. And yeah, that is what it is. Now, Stanford got a pretty good win last week. Or this last week. They beat TCU, or they lose to TCU. They did not get a win. They lose to TCU 34-27. TCU, obviously on a major decline after their national title appearance and embarrassment. That's not an embarrassing loss for Stanford. They've been in the dumpster since Harbaugh left. A lot of people upset that they're even in the ACC, along with Cal. Is what it is. Right now, they're a doo-doo team. And I just realized in the emblems, there's a lot of teams that like S logos now in the SEC. You got Stanford, NC State, Syracuse. Not impressed with Stanford, though. Let's go to Syracuse. I think Syracuse, you could make an argument of putting them above or below Pitt. I'm going to put them below just because they have a first-year head coach. Struggled a little bit against the Ohio Bobcats. Quarterback looked really good. Cards on the table, Syracuse scares me a little bit as a Tech fan. We play them next week. I'm going to New York to attend that game. Syracuse, from what the little bit I saw, has a good quarterback that can beat man coverage. They have some talented wide receivers that can hurt you, and Georgia Tech likes to blitz a lot and play man. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Based on that game, if Tech looks impressive and wins that game by 10 points or more, I would be willing to move them up into ACC championship contender. But through 1 week, Fran Brown and the Oranges looked okay to me. North Carolina won last week, much like SMU, and they're going in the doo-doo tier. Actually, we'll move them out of the doo-doo tier. We'll put them, if I'm just going to be honest, we'll put them slightly above Duke. They won against Minnesota, but they didn't look good at all doing it. Now, I do feel awful for them. They lose their quarterback. Season-ending injury. The guy that came in behind him looks like he has talent. He's just got to get some snaps under his belt. North Carolina should have lost that game. And a lot of people are going to want me to eat crow and say, oh, well, Collins' defense looked much improved for North Carolina. Yeah, but you got to look at the full context. There was a ton of rain. All right. So that was going to make it where both teams were going to run the ball a lot. It was going to make it easier on your DCs and much harder on your OCs. There was still things that I saw that are typical of Jeff Collins' defenses. Sloppy tackling. Now, maybe you attribute that to the rain too. That would be fair. Some people out of position. I think he held them to like right around 300 or maybe even under 300 yards of offense, but both teams were about at that. The point for North Carolina is Minnesota has an awful offense, and when the game was on the line, Minnesota drove right down the field on you. Right down the field on you. And they have a dumb left-footed kicker that ended up missing 2 field goals and still shoot off the fireworks. They're like, man, well, these fireworks are going to expire before next week's game. We better shoot these off. North Carolina's lucky, absolutely lucky they're not 0-1 right now. But you are a bottom-of-the-barrel ACC team. Miami's clearly after 1 week, the best team in the conference. They could be the most talented team in the conference. They played like it. They beat Florida so bad they probably almost fired Billy Napier right after the game. Now, Miami fans might be saying, oh, we're clearly a national title contending team. I got to see more football on that too. I'm willing to say you're clearly an ACC championship contender. But history matters here. Miami's been doing the we're back thing for 20 years. You've made one ACC title appearance. Your whole time since you've left the Big East. Now, Miami's schedule does shape up well for them. And I have seen a ton of people that aren't just Tech or Miami fans saying they could see a Miami-Georgia Tech ACC title game. I mean, Miami has Florida A&M, Ball State, Central Florida, Virginia Tech, Cal, at Louisville. You might only face 2 ranked teams all year, at most. So they're certainly, I mean, almost a shoe-in for an ACC title berth. I've got to see more football before I say they're definitely going deep in the playoffs, though. Virginia Tech, awful. Worst team in the ACC right now. They lose to Vanderbilt. It's hard to lose to Vanderbilt. You know what Vanderbilt's SEC over-under win total is? Half a game. That means if you take that bet on the over and Vanderbilt beats any SEC team on their schedule, you win money. That's how bad Vanderbilt is. Virginia Tech, oh, they're a dark horse for the ACC. Whatever. There was several people that weren't sold on that. Sea-Dog more so than me wasn't sold on it. I wasn't sold on it either. I was saying, look, they're much improved. But all of this hype is based on what? That they return a lot of players, that their schedule seems to be somewhat easy. You can't go out and look, Vanderbilt tried to give that game back to him. Vanderbilt misses a game-winning field goal, comes out, stops Virginia Tech on 4 downs after scoring almost immediately in overtime and winning that game. That's what Virginia Tech gets for being a bunch of turkeys, man. All these Big East teams that came in and were supposed to dominate the conference haven't done crap in 20 years, so I have zero respect for Virginia Tech right now. Wake Forest gets a decent win. We'll put them maybe right here. Who did Wake Forest play? I forget, but they have a decent win. Wake Forest is another team that I've always kind of respected from a distance. Well coached. Like even when Georgia Tech was looking to hire a coach, we absolutely made the right choice in Brent Key, but I would not have all been upset with trying to hire Dave Clawson. I think he's done a fantastic job there. He's done a fantastic job developing quarterbacks. We'll see how Wake does. We'll put them at the top of the bottom of the ACC. And then we have you. We have you, Florida State. And I'm going to do something that needs to be done. We'll put you at the top of the doo-doo tier. So you should be happy that you're at the top of something. Just so happens you're at the top of the doo-doo tier now. After how you acted, I still have Florida State fans commenting from videos from like 2 years ago, commenting on community posts for Georgia State. Y'all struggling against Georgia State. Ended up covering. We're so in Florida State's heads. They're now becoming Georgia State fans. And I felt like Georgia State played better than Florida State. You're not a good team. And that's why, this is why I don't have Georgia Tech as a ACC championship contender, because I think that Florida State might not be a very good team. I mean, I really do think that. Georgia State has a better quarterback than you. That's a fact. Georgia State has a better quarterback than Florida State. Boy, they're having nightmares about that game-winning field goal. Near, far, wherever you are, we suck balls and we know it. We're Seminoles. Go ahead and write a comment about that too. So I guess from what we have here, there's 17, I think, ACC schools. Miami at number 1. We got Clemson at 2. Even though they lost, they did play a good team. Louisville at 3. Georgia Tech at 4, Pitt at 5, Syracuse at 6, Wake Forest at 7, Cal at 8, Boston College 9, UNC 10, Duke at 11, Florida State at 12, which is generous. SMU at 13, NC State at 14, Stanford at 15, Virginia at 16, and Virginia Tech at 17. Tell me what you guys think. Where am I right? Where am I wrong? Do I have like Clemson too high? Is Georgia Tech too low? Let me know in the comment section. Hope you guys have a great Memorial Day, and we're all going to be watching you, Florida State, because you're for the second week in a row on a primetime spot where you're the only team playing. So we'll see if you bounce back or if you end up just quitting like you did at the end of last year. Type and have a good one.